Welcome to today's KM World webinar, brought to you by Access, Verint, and Lucidworks. I'm Mary D. Ojawa, Editor-in-Chief at KM World Magazine. I will be the moderator for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled Game-Changing Technologies in Machine Learning and AI. Before we get started, I want to explain how you can be a part of this broadcast. There will be a question and answer session, so if you have a question during the presentation, just type it into the question box provided and click on the submit button. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but if your question has not been selected during the show, you will receive an email response to it within a few days. Plus, all viewers will be entered to win a $100 Amazon gift card just for viewing today's webinar. And now to introduce our speakers for today: Jason Butler, VP of Conversion Services Access; John Schmey, Senior Director, KM Strategy Verint; Patrick Heffel, Head of Partner Success, Lucidworks. And now let me pass the event over to Jason Butler, VP of Conversion Services Access. Go ahead, Jason.
Thanks, Mary D. I appreciate the ability to come here and talk about these game-changing technologies and how we're really shaping it at Access, as well as excited for hearing John and Patrick and everything that they have going on as well. So I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to the entire conversation today. So what are we doing at Access? This whole use of machine learning and artificial intelligence is really at our North Star. We at Access take a lot of time and effort to understand what our clients are giving us from a information management perspective. A lot of times in a perfect world, we like to think that every single box of paper and every single box of files that we get is nice, indexed perfectly. Everybody knows exactly what's in there. Unfortunately, we don't. A lot of times clients themselves don't know what they're sending us and what's in each box, yet they know they're going to maybe want that material at the end of the day. So what we have done is really made this, like I said, our North Star of how do we speed up the indexing process and get better, faster, more efficient at that process to better serve our clients and help them understand the material that they have and how we can get it to them in the best way. And we do that through these three ways. How can we make it quick and efficient for them to get access to those files? Sometimes faster, you make more errors. So we got to make sure we can accurately classify those documents and mitigate that risk for them, so that our clientele knows exactly what they're getting in it. And we have to do this in a cost-effective way. So those are really our three main guiding principles that we have to really abide by at Access, and that's what we're using these technologies to make sure we do this. So starting with faster document discovery and retrieval. Like I said, a lot of times our clients don't know what's in our boxes, and that's tough. So instead of knowing what's in there, we spend a lot of time, a lot of manual hours opening up those boxes, taking a look at those files. And if we really dig deep into it, it's a slow process that we have to leverage all the time there, right? We have people pulling out the files, seeing what the relevant information is, what files they want indexed, or what fields they want indexed, so that we can make sure that the client knows exactly what they are. So if they need the files, then we can go get them for them at a later time if we need to. How do we get around that? Well, we started thinking, well, what if we use our OCR techniques, right? We have scanners, we can do this. But the trick with those are you have really three main groups when you're trying to index a file, right? You have files that the information may be on the outside of the folder, which makes it super simple, and we can probably use some different ways to look at it. Sometimes that information might be hidden on a folder tab with paper sticking out, so you might have to open some of those folders and collect that data and everything else. So when we started digging into that data, we noticed manually we were only doing about 60 to 90 files per hour. And that's slow, right? Not only that, our users have to hand type the material into either a database of some sort, or even at times into an Excel spreadsheet. And then at that, it may not always be accurate. You may fat finger a field, and we have to do some QA on that. So really what we wanted to do is how can we utilize camera technology to take that picture and OCR it, thus allowing us those different AI techniques to really make this more robust and faster for our end users. And that's what we've been doing. We've been partnering with clients through different technologies and seeing which one's the best, helping create their manifest for them so they have a better understanding of the materials. And what we've seen is, we've seen this massive increase in speed and able to go ahead and collect that information from those folders themselves. So, I put this little table down here on this sheet of, ever since we started looking at the technology aspect, how fast can we get? How fast can we push the envelopes? We're never going to be as fast as putting all the paper through, but we also know that's a very expensive process anytime you start loading millions of documents through. So how do we really speed that up? So we are trying to find a way to get it better, faster, and cheaper. And this is what we've seen so far. Even from our first test where we had really good improvement over manual indexing, we did want to see how fast we could push the envelope. And we really focused on these 3 different classifications, like I mentioned earlier. And by the end of our 3rd test, and we're still relatively new and still trying to figure some of this stuff out, but we feel very confident in these numbers that we can push up to 700, almost 800 files per hour in a lot of these cases. And if it's just really right on the front edge, you can almost push scanner speeds and look at the 1,000 to 1,500 files per hour number. So you can start seeing how efficient we can make this process, going from just a few files per hour and really making sure it's typed in correctly and everything that we need, to being able to collect that data. And we all know that as we collect that data, we're going to be able to get to these different techniques that we're using. And this is where the fun really starts to happen for us, right? Is collecting that data and making sure we're there. So next, we look at how do we mitigate that risk, right? We're capturing pictures, we're scanning the data in now, trying to figure out where we want to go with a lot of those pieces of it. And that's really where we start hitting the AI stuff, the AI work, right? So how do we use that artificial intelligence and make sure that we can gain the confidence of our end users that we are getting the right data and we are using the technology for the best of its ability. And we do this through a 2-pronged method. And this is just one. I know there's several out there right now. We look at how confident we are and that we're collecting that right data. So the precision, you can think of that as the precision of the data that we're capturing and how confident we make that work. And then we look at if we're able to match to record types. And that's those 2 pieces of the puzzle are really what we care about, right? As we continue to dive into this world, you try to figure out the human errors and whatnot, and that's really why we want to bring the AI piece into it to make sure we're meeting exactly what we need. So I put in another real life example that we had with one of our clients out there. And when we started this process and they, we worked with them and they knew they were coming along for the journey. The first time we ran the data, we had a little bit of limited information. You can see we felt we were 53% confident that we had all the right data and we were matching it. So we were precise up to 53%. And then when we went back, we matched that data at 60%. Thus, really, if you add those 2 up and looking at it, really was only 32% confident that we were matching all of the data that we needed to. So, a little scary for the clients, like, wait a second, you're only at 32%. But we said, hold on, we're going to continue to learn. We're going to continue to analyze the data and build our libraries the way we needed to. And after a week, and one more week, we started learning those little more nuances about the client and looking at the information that was out there. And then you can see what happened. All of a sudden, the second pass through, 1 week later, we were over 99% confident in that data. We were very precise in making sure all that data we were capturing, we understood and making sure it hit. And it upped our match score to 85% matched. So now we can comfortably say out of that, in just 1 week's time, we went from 32% confidence of being accurate in that data to over 84% confident in hitting that data. So really, that's how we're starting to mitigate those risks, right? We build those libraries, we work with our different teams out there to make sure that that is really how we want to make sure we're hitting that data and getting that accurate information so that the customer may not always know what they have in their boxes, but we can start showing the comfort level that we have with that and making sure they get comfortable with the data and getting them to be able to say, all right, now I know it's in these boxes. Let's go ahead and let's really start ramping this up. So we've talked about being faster with our documents and collecting that data, how we mitigate our risk, and really what does that mean what is the end result for our clients, right? And what is that the end results for Access and our clients is lowering the cost with automation. How do we make sure we lower that cost out there and get it going out there? So really, again, we're at the forefront of this, and these are some of the projections that we have, right? So these are some of the expected effects that we have with some of our work that we have going on in our different centers around the Americas today. So looking at one, we were looking at 4 projects, and when we started laying out the number of files that each one of these clients had, we started laying out the time, the number of fields that they want to index, how much manual labor we were going to get into working on it. You can see these 4 projects were projected to go out almost 18 months. So really ramping it up and ending sometime throughout 2025. When we layered in some of our modeling that we had out there, projections on speed, projections on the types of files that they have, projections on the amount of fields they want to index, whether they were handwritten, not handwritten, we really started laying that out. We project that we can get all 4 of these projects done in under by the time Q1 2024 rolls around. So when we look at that, that's a 12-month reduction in the time that our clients now have the ability to capture everything that's in their folders today. So again, showing that speed, using automation, using the AI out there to bring the data to the clients that much faster in the real world. So this is something that we're looking at. We are really projecting this to be a dominant change for us in where we want. So not only the speed there, while speed is nice, the next one that we can show you is here's our projected cost savings. These are just some of what we were out there looking at and whatnot. So this is the expense that we have to do this and really working with this with the data that we have out there. We're projecting that we can save our clients over $63,000, and you can kind of see the margin that we have there. Pretty amazing cost savings, speed savings, and getting all of that data to where we need it to be at the end of the day. So we've gone from a very labor-intensive process and time delay that our clients really want their information and make some decisions based on the information that's in those files. They may need them if it's a law firm or a healthcare firm. They may need that data fast, and we're trying to find ways to make sure we can get in that data faster. So we are really excited about the early results that we have with automation and with the AI experience out there today. This is just the tip of the iceberg, we feel, for us. This is just one of our many centers out there that we're projecting this. So within 1 quarter, you can start to add this up. If you look at all of our centers across the Americas, Canada, North America itself, how much money we can help project to save, not only Access as a whole, but as our clients, and then also the speed that they will be able to get that data to them and understand where that information is. So like I said, we are really excited about this technology. We're really excited about how we can partner with our clients at the end of the day to make this happen. And that's where we're at with what we have going on Access from an automation standpoint. Mary D, back to you.
Thank you, Jason. And now let me pass the event over to John Schmay, Senior Director, KM Strategy, Verint. Go ahead, John.
Thanks, Mary D. Hi, everybody. I'm going to give you a little tour of the strategy we've been developing around delivering AI across our platform applications and helping our customers consume it in useful ways. So I'm going to go fairly briskly through this, but I thought it'd be useful for you to see sort of the range of things that we're developing. So first off, what are we trying to do with AI, right? We're trying to make a better customer experience. Verint sells products for support agents, self-service applications, back office, but all around servicing customers and answering their questions and providing excellent service. And so our focus is on what do we do to make that happen across all the AI applications that are coming out in the market and things that we've been researching. So you need some kind of an open platform to be able to absorb all this in some systematic and manageable way. In addition, we all know that good AI is only as good as the data that it deals with, just as we were just discussing. So we've got to be able to train these AI models on relevant data, especially specific to customers, as we'll see more and more customers demanding AI that responds specifically to their business scenarios. And then finally, allow this thing to be embedded in the workflows that matter, right? Not just bring back smart answers, but in fact, embed the notion of workflow with AI and enrich it that way. And to do that, we've developed what we call the Da Vinci platform, or the Verint Open CCAS platform featuring Da Vinci. So what is Da Vinci? Well, Da Vinci is the hub of our entire endeavor. It's where we harvest, vend out, and mature different forms of AI. There are over 40 applications in the Verint suite, and so the AI needs to be coordinated and matured in some sort of way to be able to be applied to all those places. There's also something called the Open Engagement Data Hub, which leverages AI for reporting and analytics. I won't focus on that so much today, but what I will focus on is knowledge management, which is one of the core applications inside of the Open CCAS platform. So the value here is to develop one approach that's sort of a background where customers can organize their own applications, their own AI, and integrate those with the workflows they care about. And knowledge management, as we all know, is a critical component in structuring and delivering great experiences through intelligent automation and through artificial intelligence. So let's talk a little bit more about how we approach that. Some of the things that are really important to think about, and I gave a talk at KM World in 2019 about this, and things are moving so fast that it's now become a reality about how to absorb and use AI effectively. First off, as I said before, the philosophy here is to deliver better CX, better results, better answers, and of course that leads to a lot of business benefit, which we'll talk about. Second is one that's really top of mind for a lot of people today is, how do I make this AI relevant to the data in my business? How do I make sure it's open and secure and don't get tripped up with the bias or other factors of sharing data? And so we have to be able to support proprietary and commercial models and be responsible. And finally, how do we enrich our data processes properly? Let's talk a little bit about each one of these briefly. So the idea of working in processes and workflows is that AI works best when it augments, accelerates, or improves some business process. Perhaps there are business processes that could be done through AI alone, but in our world, there are human beings, in the Verint world, there are human beings that are providing service, and automation sits at the front end of that in self-service applications. It can be infused throughout any support interaction. But at the end of the day, we're not trying to replace humans with intelligence. We're trying to augment their capabilities and give them superpowers, if you will, to make sure they can focus on the parts they do well and leverage AI for the parts that they need help with. And these design principles are based on real customer engagement data. Verint has an inherent advantage here because we've been managing customer support data through recording, speech analytics, real-time transcription. We've got a ton, billions of records, in fact, that are pertinent to the domain of our customers. So we sort of have a leg up in maturing AI using data sets that are relevant to the types of information customers in our domain need. And they're in 80 languages. There's just a ton of information from our global applications and global customers that we can leverage to really develop interesting and smart AI models. And we continuously improve those and tune them to people's unique business environment. One of the advantages of having this AI platform is, in the cloud especially, which has enabled a lot of this, if you think about it, is our customers' applications are largely in the cloud, which means their reporting data is in the cloud. And we can work with our customers to leverage their own personal data alongside of the historical records that we use to tune AI, to really tune the types of responses we can do to everybody's specific business environment. There's a lot of advantages to this platform approach, including managing intelligent data in large amounts of it. I won't touch too far on this, but it really has to be an important part of any consideration for AI, right? You have to be able to support proprietary AI, public AI, which is accelerating rapidly and very interestingly. You also have to be able to have the guardrails on information so that you don't expose the wrong information to the wrong people, that you maintain compliance with different things that your business or the market you're in is relevant. And you have to have tools and governance processes in place. So there's a lot that goes into trying to manage AI in an intelligent way and in an efficient way. And as I mentioned earlier, the platform is already starting to vend out a whole bunch of different AI capabilities. I'm going to show you several of them pertinent to knowledge management, but you can well see all the different places. If you just think about the support domain, hiring agents, getting them to train, make sure they say the right things, coaching them, forecasting their schedules, working on automating their interactions, knowledge management, conversational AI. There's a ton of stuff that goes into creating a great support capability. And DaVinci supports many of these in our applications and other applications through the Open CCAS platform. So let's just talk briefly about some of the things that are relevant to our domain in absorbing AI as examples of this type of approach. We had a cognitive search model that won the 2019 KM World Promise Award. That was related to an intelligent probabilistic interface, an index for search that allows you to do things like if I type moving home, I don't need any synonyms or fancy concepts. I actually understand moving home includes changes to address and can automatically, cognitively bring back the right answers. So there's one example of cognitive search. Well, that's been moved into DaVinci. And now we have engineers working on the next generation of LLMs and things for search through DaVinci. I'm going to talk about 3 other things that have emerged this year. Interaction transfer, which in a call center means if I'm talking to somebody on a chat channel or some other external interaction, or even talking to an agent in a contact center, if I have to transfer that to somebody else, can I summarize that intelligently? I'll show you some of this. Likewise, when I'm done interacting with the customer, can I summarize that activity intelligently? That's a massive value one itself. Knowledge creation. If I want to create knowledge from long content that I've got sitting out in a spidered resource or out on the internet somewhere, or even in my own knowledge base, how can I harvest that out in an intelligent way without spending forever trying to rework long or complex documents? So let's take a look at those use cases. First of all, interaction transfer. Okay, so you're talking to somebody, or there's a chat that comes in, and I need to know what it was because it's going to the next channel. So here's a chat about flights and confirmations, but somebody's flight's been canceled. They need to talk to somebody. There's no amount of IVA or chat that's going to get them their answer. So they need to talk to an agent. They get transferred into the contact center, and the entire chat transcript can be supported through our summary engine to give the person in the contact center a really nice, tight summary of what happened. They don't have to read the whole chat. They can get down to business and solve the customer's question quickly. And then even if that's happening on the speech channel, we have a speech and text analytics capability that can go ahead and summarize that conversation. So there's lots of critical and important ways in which we can help move people along and provide them intelligence to do the task that they have through using this interaction transfer. So it saves time, improves the quality because I know what I'm trying to solve for, improves customer satisfaction because you get your answer faster, and you're moving across support channels seamlessly. I don't have to start over again when I talk to somebody, and in fact, they can probably solve my question faster because they see everything I've asked about. The next one is interaction wrap-up, which is when I'm done, I want to be able to complete my call. It's amazing how much time is spent. Sometimes wrapping up a call can take 4 to 6 minutes. Imagine knocking that out for millions of calls a year. We did some business case work on this. We had to dial it back because no one believed us. If we're going to save 4 minutes on thousands of calls, the ROI becomes just stunning. And so the idea is I'm in some sort of an agent desktop. I've already got some speech analytics providing some rules and some things about sentiment and different things that have happened during the call. I go ahead forward. I get a summary of what the things are that were done during the interaction, and I can go ahead and close up my call. So it saves time. It makes it more consistent, accurate to summarize. Some agents are better or worse. And so there's a lot of consistency and value that you get by using the interaction wrap-up. Now we're going to talk about this idea of knowledge creation right in the knowledge base. So here's where we use the power of GPT to send out snippets of information that we think are too long or complicated and get a summary back to move us forward quickly into the next interaction. So let's say I'm searching for a knowledge object here in our contextual knowledge panel, and I realize that I get a document about refunds from the Department of Transportation. It's too long. It's just not really going to serve purpose. I only have a part of this I need to manage. So I give feedback to my knowledge team saying that this is too long. I've got to get this done. And so inside the workflow of the knowledge management tool comes the refund object from Department of Transportation. I go ahead and put it in, and I select a piece of text that I want to auto-summarize. When I auto summarize it, send it to GPT, I select the piece I want, it comes back with a nice tight summary from GPT 3.5 Turbo that gives me a sense of what that object is. Department of Transportation object could be 10 pages long. I can select the areas that I want to create curated content from and very quickly get jump started into that process. So I go ahead and create a draft article. I'm inside my authoring tool. It's seamless to me. The author doesn't have to attend to figuring out how to rewrite this entire document and focus their attention on the sections that they think are important and push it back out as an object on the search bar. Down here, we see the refund object. It's provided as a link. And instead of having to grovel that whole thing, which probably shows up in a lot of search results because it has so many words in it, I can focus my attention on providing the areas that are unique and important to my customer base. So this knowledge creation bot reduces the cost of authoring, helps people when they're migrating information in, improves the quality because now you're starting with consistent sections of content, and it also helps organizations jumpstart knowledge creation and keep things up to date with long content and keep their authors working on providing value, not on groveling through lots of content to figure out what to write. So this is a really valuable auto summarization capability, again, leveraging the power of GPT. So in summary, I've showed several use cases where this OpenAI capability allows us to leverage things out in the industry like GPT. We're already developing AI applications around other facets, other products in our domain are using different types of machine learning applications. Our Open Engagement Data Hub manages information in really useful ways by providing ways to ingest and analyze data. So there's a lot of benefit to leveraging AI in a congregated way like this, and it sits on an open CCAS platform, which is both open to accept different people's inputs and allow different AI applications to coexist with proprietary and public capabilities and continue to improve. And then the other huge benefit is you can start to vend this AI across your information space. One of the things we're going to see more and more in this industry, in any of our industries, is the proliferation of AI. GPT was sort of the warning shot over the bow about what's coming. But imagine when we have 10 different types of AI in an organization. How are you going to manage that stuff? Who manages it? How do you vend it into different applications? How do you keep it consistent? How do you feed and update your data? So there's a lot of practical considerations here, as well as some exciting use cases that I hope you got to see real examples of here about how we intend to really build customer experience and create a manageable, useful platform for customers to leverage in our domain. Thanks. I'll hand it over to the next user.
Thank you, John. Now let me pass the event over to Patrick Heffel, Head of Partner Success, Lucidworks. Floor is yours, Patrick.
Thanks so much, Mary D. And thank you also to Jason and John for providing such great information. Lucidworks, just as a quick intro, is a member of the KM World AI Top 100 Companies and also a member of the KM World Top 100 Companies that Matter in Knowledge Management, and the leading provider of AI-powered search solutions to large companies and enterprises across the globe. We actually started using AI 5 years ago. The current interest in AI just fueled on that already burning fire that has dramatically accelerated interest in our Lucidworks Fusion search platform since then. Today, I want to talk about some stuff that generative AI does really well, some stuff where there are some challenges. I want to talk about some generative AI techniques you can use today and tomorrow. And then I want to give you some 10 terms that you can use from the generative AI space to impress your friends and relatives and see if you can make your mark in your organization. So let's jump in. Generative AI is great at a lot of things. One of them is, and this is where we see probably some of the most use right now, synthesizing existing text into an answer. I asked ChatGPT to summarize War and Peace in one sentence, and this is what it gave me. Reasonable minds, I suppose, can disagree on if that's an accurate summarization, but when it comes to providing utility, and John showed this too, summarizing what would otherwise be cumbersome, complex text is a great asset of this tool, and doing it in a way that is understandable. Something else that is great at is understanding semantic meaning. And what I mean by that is I asked Google Bard, can you recommend a wine for someone pinching pennies? Well, in this question, in this query, there are two important pieces of information. One is wine, that's the context. Two, pinching pennies. Clearly, I am looking for a price sensitive response. And it actually exactly understood what I wanted. And it gave me this awesome box of Boda wine that is 3 bottles for $15. So I didn't have to train it what pinching pennies means. It understood from the whole world of document content that what it was, what I intended. So that's a really valuable, and one of the things that we at Lucidworks find most helpful about this. It's also great at code. This isn't something that a lot of people necessarily talk about unless you're in that space. But I asked it to write a function in JavaScript to loop through characters in a string and replace every space character with an underscore character. And lo and behold, in a few seconds, it did that. And this is exactly what I asked it to do. But then it went one step further, which I thought was super interesting. And it said, if you're interested, there's a shorter way to do that. You can do the same thing in 1 line instead of 10 lines. And it provided that as well. So this is actually changing the game in software because it's an AI coding assistant that I won't try to paint too far into the future, but this is available today, and engineers across the world are taking advantage of this capability to great effect. Something else that generative AI does really well is sound convincingly authoritative. So I asked Bard, who's the best team in baseball right now? And here's an interesting answer. There are a lot of ways that you can answer that question because there's a lot of different ways to measure best team in baseball. It gave me the Atlanta Braves, and they do happen to, as of yesterday anyway, were the top team in baseball. I guess it was Sunday. But anyway, they had the best record. Now, there's other ways to measure best, and it's sort of focused on the National League. And of course, the Tampa Bay Rays are the best team in the American League, at least in terms of record. And it gave not just an answer, it was accurate on one level, but it was confident of that answer in the way it presented it. And that's something that we'll see in a minute. It really can also be one of the challenges. So here's a bonus note that it also is great at generating overly wordy responses, much like Herman Melville, who got paid by the word to write Moby Dick and probably is a contributor to its length. The amount of text that moves back and forth is part of the cost model. And so it's in the interest of the large language model service providers to have it generate maybe a little bit more text response than less. And it's your job as an implementer of generative AI services to try and put some controls or guardrails around what it's doing. If you don't need 3 paragraphs to answer the question, maybe just tell it answer in 5 words or less, and let it see what it will give you. So some things that generative AI, where it has some challenges. I think saying that it's bad at this is perhaps a misnomer. These are areas where there are some struggles and challenges that we've run into. Specific details. Who caught the headline back in May that a lawyer used ChatGPT to generate part of his brief, and it completely fabricated court cases that the opposing counsel discovered, and then that didn't go very well for that lawyer. We call that hallucination. where it just makes stuff up that isn't actually true, but it sounds really authoritative and convincing, and will tell you that it's really good. But it's a challenge, it's a risk. And what we've found is that the more specific the question is that you ask a large language model, the more challenged it is to give you a response. And you probably know that ChatGPT, its training data was capped at September of 2021. So if you asked for something specific about a topic that occurred after 2021, it will tell you, I don't know about that. So another challenge area is deepfakes. This is Jim Carrey in The Shining. It visually is almost imperceptible. So Jack might have an issue with that, but from an entertainment standpoint, that's one thing. But when a deepfake goes to statements being made by one of the leaders of the free world, it really calls into question what you can trust and what you can't. And so this is going to be an ongoing conversation for years to come. But it is an area that, for all of the good that generative AI offers us, there's some challenge as well. Copyrights. So today's large language models train on data from across the world and across the internet, and they're not particularly concerned with where the data came from. It just pulls content from whatever seems relevant and uses that to synthesize an answer for you to your question. Well, attribution of those sources, especially as it gets more specific, if it's about Taylor Swift, then I don't know, maybe it's not as relevant who actually wrote those words or parts of those words, but when you're talking about maybe patents or a lot of other topics, attribution is a really big deal. And I think there's a strike going on around some of that exact stuff in Hollywood. So cybersecurity, if you happen to have been in San Francisco in April at the RSA conference, generative AI is a huge part of that conversation. And most people talk about the way generative AI can help on the good guy side to protect cybersecurity, but there's also for every tool out there, it can be used by bad actors as well to create hacks and other security breaches. It can break in as quickly as you can protect against it. So it's both an opportunity, but also it's an area of great risk. So then another topic we hear all the time from our customers and prospects is, hey, can you protect my data? And the answer is there are absolutely ways to do that. And there are guardrail technologies that we employ in our own space, in our own tools. But the risk is, hey, if these generative AI systems get my data, can they use it? And the answer is sometimes they do. They'll keep it for longer than you want. They will use it for things that you never intended, and the data will spill over sometimes. Background people or people in the background of a photograph that aren't really what you meant, but gets caught up in the context. Sometimes that occurs as well. So there are things to be concerned of. There are things to be excited about, and both are realities in the world that we live in. So if you're going to use generative AI, what are some of the great things you can do? Answering difficult questions with retrieval augmented generation. I'll talk about that more in a minute, but that's using your data and not letting the AI system give you what it thinks. It helps to reduce hallucinations substantially. And that's something that happens at query time. Copilots or digital assistants came up earlier, whether it's code generation, maybe it's a personal shopping assistant or meal planning assistant or travel planning, course selection, project planning, resume writing, tutoring. All of these are great applications for generative AI today. And there are products in the market that are addressing every one of these topics. At index time, generative AI has some great opportunities to help you clean up dirty data as it's coming in, to do consistency checks, to do validations that will help automate some of the pretty manual work involved in managing your data. Classification of data, it's really great at summarizing large data sets into groupings or categories. It's extremely helpful. Data enrichment, add meaning or meaningful descriptions. A lot of times maybe you have some product data that you need a better description, or you need that description in another language. That's a great use of generative AI, and something that we do and something that we see others doing as well. Some terminology that's useful to know, and you can get the details in the slides afterwards. A transformer is actually the technical underpinnings of all of these large language models. It was invented by Google in 2017. A large language model, that gets talked about a lot. It's a deep learning model built on transformers. A vector store is really important to the retrieval augmented generation conversation, and it's a numeric representation of a text string that is semantically sensitive. A hallucination, as I mentioned, is when the AI just makes stuff up. Retrieval augmented generation is today's best answer to hallucinations, and it's doing a search against your vector store or your search engine or your database, taking those results that are presumed to be relevant, giving those to the large language model to synthesize into a single answer. And we've seen a lot of really valuable stuff there. Grounding is just a generalization of retrieval augmented generation. Prompt engineering is the instructions you give to help get to exactly what you're looking for. Guardrails are the way we bound the work. Foundation model is the general purpose one, and fine tuning is laying your content on top of it. And as a bonus, AI-driven automation, I think what we'll find is the future is automation where this all ends. So feel free to use those terms at your next office party or family reunion. You'll sound really intelligent. So thank you from Lucidworks, and thank you to my colleagues who provided such wonderful content.
Well, thank you, Patrick. And now we want to move on to some questions from our viewers. We've got this one here, which is for Jason. Someone wants to know if you could elaborate on the scalability of the indexing solution that you described. How well does it adapt to different industries or organizational document types and sizes?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really great question. And we are seeing it to be able to scale. Really, when you look at what we're trying to capture and how we're trying to utilize the technology, we are more interested in how is that document laid out? What's the type of information that we need to pull from it? So we can really utilize the technology any way we can. It doesn't matter if it's just a date field. We can go date fields, MRN numbers. We can look at first and last names. We're playing with handwriting on the folders themselves. So we really see this as an extremely scalable solution across all platforms out there, whether it's healthcare, insurance, legal fields. It really doesn't matter. With what we're seeing, the power of artificial intelligence and the capability of the machine learning programs that we're utilizing, sky's the limit. And that's what we're really excited about at Access, because we deal with a variety of different clients, different industries out there right now. So we are seeing a lot of success in this, and looking to really scale it across our enterprise as a whole.
Okay, great. This one's for John. How do people get started with AI implementations with your platform approach?
So the interesting thing about this DaVinci AI approach and all the applications we surround it with and feed it is that you start where you are. So you pick an application, and it's the way people organize their business goals anyways. Okay, I have this set of transactions I want to automate. I have these capabilities that I want to accelerate the intelligence that's used in that process. I need to leverage some sort of AI, whether it be generative or machine learning or otherwise. And so the way that we expect people to use these things is to start with the workflows that they want to enhance, the things that might benefit from automated intelligence through things like GPT, and then the application or tool set where it lives. Now, this presumes a fairly high number of connectors. And so we have a marketplace built with hundreds of connectors on it, and more coming. And I think that's where, interestingly, even though a connector is not a really snazzy sounding thing, it's actually incredibly important. If you've got plug and play capability and a way to consume AI for particular use cases. So for example, that authoring use case I showed you is, okay, I want to author content. I see my store is too big. How do I make that faster? I don't ask, what can I do with generative AI generally? I want to do this workflow thing. What's going to help me? And the more AI we consume into the AI hub, the DaVinci, and the more connectors we have, the more flexibly and we're going to be able to enable this for folks. So the way to get started is start where you are. Think about a process you think would really benefit. In our world, call wrap-up time for a support agent is just a killer. People spend hours per week. So how do we fix that one, right? And so the more we can talk with folks about what makes a better CX, what makes a more efficient workflow, it's all the same stuff in knowledge management, right? I want more efficiency, I want a better customer experience, and I want to get value from the people that I've hired to help do all that. So look at those values, look at the tools you've got, and then we talk AI from there.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, how would you look at this issue of getting started with AI implementations?
Yeah, well, I would say don't let your 16-year-old drive the Ferrari. With great power comes great responsibility. And I really like what John said, that start with the business case. Don't start with the technology. The technology is cool, but what's the problem you're trying to solve? And is that a problem that lends itself to an AI-powered solution? If it is, great. Baby steps. Start with the tricycle and say, if this was the problem I was trying to solve, go to your ChatGPT console, go to your Bard console, go to your favorite AI provider, and just start asking some questions to say, what kind of responses am I getting? Does this look like it might solve my problem? If it does, then dig a little deeper and lean into the API-based approach to how can I automate some of this, and then that would be where to start. Just sort of getting a sense for what is it really going to give you, and then how can I control it? What guardrails am I able to put around this so that I can protect my information from being misused, and I can make sure that only the people I need to see the data see the data.
Jason, what's your take on getting started?
It's going to be a common theme, right? Start with a business case. It may not be the right solution depending on what we get from our end users all the time. But you got to start with what are you trying to capture? What are your needs of the client? If if it's something that's realistic and we can really sit down and carve out what that solution looks like, then yeah, we can go full speed ahead. But you know, there are times and there are situations that it may not be the best fit to really enhance the benefits that we're trying to get the end user. It may be a little more cost prohibitive by the way the data is structured or what type of data they need to make sure they're looking at how the folders were packed in the box. So it really is exactly what Patrick and John were talking about of start with the business case, start with what you're trying to solve for, and let's see if we can develop the right solution for you with all of the different capabilities and with all the different tool suites that you can have. You can probably find a pretty good solution, but there might be times where they just don't fit, and you got to figure out, maybe I need to pass and wait for the technology to get a little bit better. We know that it will. It's only a matter of time, but it might not be the right time for the business problems that you're trying to solve. So exactly like Patrick and John said, is start with the business case, and then let's figure out what the solution, what the technology can do for you.
Sure. Patrick, this is an interesting one. When restricting generative AI to just your own data, what keeps it from hallucinating any differently than it does when it has the entire internet's data to work with?
Sure. Great question. On the one hand, you could argue nothing keeps it from doing that, except that if I only give it 10 documents worth of data, and those are the most relevant 10 documents according to the preliminary search that I did, then I'm telling the model to restrict its answer to only the data available within those 10 documents. And so it's not going to create some reference to some completely external, non-relevant content. It's not going to talk about hockey when I gave it football content. So that's really the nuts and bolts of it. If you have a whole ocean of data to draw from versus just a small bucket, then your odds of getting the fish you don't want go way, way down. And that's been our experience as we've worked with our customers.
Okay. Well, that's actually somewhat reassuring. There's been just so much in the press about hallucinations. I think people get a little bit
that's right.
Scared really about, well, if I'm going to bring this in-house, what happens if my employees or my customers are receiving data that's not correct?
Right. Well, so if I give it chapter 3 of a book and I say, summarize, what's the key point from chapter 3 of this book? It doesn't have any other book at its disposal to create that summary from. And so as a result, you're only going to get, it might be a bad summary, but it will only be from the contents of chapter 3.
Yeah. Okay. John, here's a question for you, and it is from Patrick. Does Verint's DaVinci AI capability use the DaVinci model from OpenAI, or is that just a coincidence? And interestingly enough, I loved it that Patrick asked you this because I had the same question.
Well, I'm going to jump to a slide. I don't know if folks can see this slide if I push it on the screen. I'm assuming folks can see this.
Yeah, I think so.
So part of the design principles of the DaVinci and the OpenCCAS platform is to meld proprietary and commercial AI models when appropriate. So if you look over here under commercially available examples, there's an OpenAI one that drives the interaction summary. There's one from Microsoft Cognitive Services, one from Amazon, Prophet, and then there's some of these proprietary examples of different types of AI that we're building into our own products and tools. And so the sweet spot is if it's already been built, why do I need to reinvent the wheel, right? So in cases where OpenAI is relevant to particular use cases, we'll use OpenAI. Now, this is an oversimplification, right? That you just sort of one-to-one with all this stuff. And part of the art and science of this, we've got a huge team of people doing this stuff, is to sort out what not only the smart thing is to do today, but what's coming tomorrow, right? You need to know what's going to happen next with GPT or whatever. And so I guess the answer is yes, partially. So OpenAI is not a coincidence. It's part of our model. And for folks that have started to geek out on this, you can get pretty excited about this approach being, okay, it's a more mature way to handle this. Several of us have already pointed out this idea that, oh, I'm going to use GPT and then I'll be all set, right? The most annoying question I get is a customer that goes, well, I just want to do all my search with GPT. We're all set, right? And I'm like, you want Star Trek computer and, you don't have it yet. So it's okay. Just take it a step at a time. Anyways, I hope that answers your question. I want to make a brief comment about the hockey versus football. I guess the person that said that never saw the Chicago Bears play in terms of hockey. But I'll leave that to other people to assess the validity of that analogy.
Fair.
All right then, John. Patrick, we do have a question here that I think many of our viewers have been wanting to ask or have been asked themselves, and that is, why would we use a search engine now that we have ChatGPT?
Yeah, well, hallucination is the number one answer, and data security is the number two answer. And we get this question all the time, and I think it's annoying to me as it is the other question to John, but it's actually not annoying. It's fine. I love it when people have that curiosity, and but the answer is what I said. What you really, in order to get a really good response, retrieval augmented generation says, first go to your search engine and get the relevant documents, then send those documents to the generative AI engine and let it synthesize those results along with the question into a coherent response that actually answers the user's question, instead of just giving them a list of things and they have to figure out which one is relevant.
I'd like to comment on that briefly as well, if I could. Oh, sorry. Would you say something, Rudy? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to ask Patrick if he actually considers ChatGPT to be a search engine.
I don't, actually. It exhibits some of the characteristics of a search engine, obviously, but it's really an answer synthesis engine more than a search engine, in my opinion.
Ooh, that's great. Go ahead, John.
Well, along those lines, I just want to point out that being as I work in the customer support domain, there's no amount of snazzy GPT technology is going to be able to absorb the implicit business rules, compliance, legal considerations, and other factors of product functionality that are implied by questions that people ask that are not inside the corpus of information that this answer engine is attending to. So we have to be careful about the assumption that just a little bit of text, or it could be refined to get you the right answer. There are other considerations, and part of the staff and the support organization's job is to manage those considerations and expectations of the customer and use this tool properly. Just another way of saying it, but it ain't just the content that you asked for. There's other pieces of the puzzle in giving a compliant and valid answer that need to be considered. Right.
And for all of the people in the KM community who are listening, you will know instinctively that some content is appropriate for some people and not for other people. And a large language model has no concept of security trimming and who's allowed to see what content and who's not allowed to see other content, and providing any of those controls. You need a search engine to do that for you so that you can select the content that the really intelligent language model will then synthesize for you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that is all the time we have for questions today, and we apologize that we were unable to get to all your questions. But as I stated earlier, all questions will be answered via email. And I would like to thank our speakers today, Jason Butler, VP of Conversion Services Access, John Schmay, Senior Director, KM Strategy Verint, Patrick Heffel, Head of Partner Success, Lucidworks. Now, if you would like to review this event or send it to a colleague, please use the same URL that you used for today's event. It will be archived for 90 days. Plus, you will receive an email with the URL to view the webinar once the archive is posted. If you would like a PDF of the deck, go to the handout section once the archive is live. And just for participating in today's event, you could win this $100 Amazon gift card. The winner will be announced on August 31st. We will reach out via email if you are selected as this month's winner. Thank you again for joining us.